Hello and welcome to the Grove Podcast. My name is Moz, your host. It is a podcast of reflection. We've been knocked out of the Champions League by Bayern Munich. I'm joined today by the regular Tabs. I don't know why I keep saying that now.
It's fine by me. Very good day to you, sir.
Good day to you as well. And we're also...
I don't mean to be paraphrasing. Sorry, I don't mean to be paraphrasing whale there. It's just what came to mind.
That's fine. I'm sure he won't mind at all. I don't think he's copyrighted that just quite yet. And we're also joined today by Jamie. It's good to have you back. How are you?
Hi there, guys. I wish it had been in happier circumstances, but getting by.
Good. Good. So, let's get straight into it. How are we feeling about the game, the result? And I'll go first again if you chaps don't mind. I was angry yesterday because I feel like our performance deserved, or we deserved as fans, our performance to be a lot better than what it was over the two legs. When you look at the two legs and you look at the chances we've had and the chances we gave away, I was quite angry. It softened the blow a little bit. The Man City got knocked out as well, I guess, so we didn't have that, they're going to win the treble again or whatever. That was quite nice. What that means for the league, we don't know. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point during this podcast. But as I woke up, I think it's more, I guess I'm at peace, just like I was with the Villa result. It's our first time back in the Champions League for God knows how many years in the quarterfinals. It's a very inexperienced squad. There was moments in the game where I think we should have done better that we'll touch on as well during the course of the episode. I am at peace with it. I just wanted more, and it just felt like this was a really good chance to get into the semi-finals of the Champions League for only the third time in our history. So that's how I feel. Jamie, how do you feel about it?
Not too dissimilar. Last night was a bit kind of extremely deflated by how kind of ineffective we looked in the second half in particular, and a bit frustrated. And I kind of woke up, to be honest, and kind of felt a bit more positive about what the campaign through the Champions League has been as a whole. The fact it is the first one back, as you say, in so long, and primarily the fact that against Bayern in their place, I didn't feel in any way, shape, or form we looked like we shouldn't be there. Was it our best game? Absolutely not. Do we have more in the tank than we had then? Absolutely. But we didn't look like we shouldn't be competing for semi-finals in the Champions League. And when you think about where we were a couple of years ago, that's a pretty fantastic story.
That's a very good way of putting it. I'm sorry, I was put off by the dog barking in the back. I don't know if that's you or Tabs, but there's a dog going absolutely crazy. I don't know how that is.
Yeah, that might be Lola. Sorry, I can't hear it.
She's going absolutely berserk.
Anything
another podcast.
anything that goes on in the back garden, she goes crazy. Crazy for squirrels, crazy for the next door neighbour's dog. Sorry, I can't hear it.
That's fine. No, really good point, Jamie. Tabs, how do you feel?
Look, to be honest, actually, I felt worse post Villa. In general, I feel okay-ish today. As you expect, because this was always a bit of a long shot, and so when I was awake at 5 o'clock this morning, for whatever reason, thinking about it, making some notes, I started to look at this sort of from three levels, sort of scanning out each time, but all of which are a bit interlinked. So look, we're all disappointed by the result. We lost, and we can get into the weeds of that later. But I can accept it, and I can understand why we lost. Yeah, it doesn't make it better, but at least it helps sort of through the process. And in essence, we just are not at the level required yet to win these sort of games. Okay, and so we've got regrets. There were opportunities missed, as we said, and it could have been very different. But in the end, Bayern over the overall. The two games over the tie, I think they were the better team. They managed it better. They controlled it better, and they're very good and experienced Champions League team. So I don't think there's any shame there. Disappointing opportunities, regrets, but I think we both alluded to. I don't think there's much shame. The next level I'm looking at is then looking ahead to the Premiership. So we can be top of the league on Saturday. And if we beat Chelsea and Spurs, well, City will be the ones having to play catch up, and all this will be forgotten. They're big ifs, given where we are, but all will be forgotten. However, I am a little bit concerned that we are running on fumes. These are massive games ahead, and we seem to be fading, particularly in second halves. And over the last 2 or 3 games, that's been there. But also, we seem to be a bit devoid of creativity, and we've reverted back to our non-scoring days from earlier in the season. So there's a bit of a concern there, and then how we end this season will have a huge say in how we feel about how the season has gone and our whole perception of it, which then leads me to the final point. And then looking further out at the bigger picture, I said we've competed in the Champions League pretty well, and then Premiership we're competing. And when was the last time we did that? So then we need to look at bigger picture from all this is where do we go next in terms of improving squad quality, squad depth, the management, and having trust in the squad, so that come April next year, that we've improved from last year to this year. Come next year, we are challenging again, but we can cope, because it feels like we're not able to cope at the moment. We're making steps forward, but so next year, I think that's the next iteration. We can cope, and we're not running on fumes, and we're trusting our squad. And so I guess depending on your mindset, you can take it down a negative path or a positive path about what the opportunity is and where we are. And I think we're very close. We're there. So I don't want to be thinking about ripping everything up and starting again. It's just about managing that next level and those margins. And just one final comment before I hand it back is that Arteta said it himself yesterday in the post-match interviews, like the margins come from something we don't have yet. So he knows, and I'm going to trust him and Edu to take us to that next step and find those margins, because incrementally we have. It just takes time, and we just need a little bit of patience, which is not always the easiest thing for football fans. And so that's sort of where I am this morning.
The voice of reason, Tabs. It's always so refreshing to hear your well put, eloquent opinions, and it makes me feel so much better. I say to the guys, recording the pod is like my therapy. I think, Tabs, you are my therapist. So, okay, let's talk about highlight and low light then for the game. And Tabs, you can go first for this one. What was your highlight and low light from the game yesterday?
It depends which one. It was the Rudiger penalty. That was my highlight.
Depends on the Bayern team, obviously.
I can't believe my son, when the game finished, said, "Oh, can we watch the Man City game?" I said, "Really?" So okay, fine. And thankfully City lost. So at least that treble dream is over, and they're fallible. And it just goes to show how difficult it is the quarters. Look at the teams that have gone out in the quarterfinals. So there we go. No, in terms of highlight of the game, we're there. I think Jamie alluded to it. We did not look out of place. We can do better, of course, but we weren't showing up. We were at a level. It was margins, just bits that we can change. So for me, the highlight is just being there, being at these events, and people can see us. We just need to take that next step. In terms of the low light, it was that Saka corner at the end. Oh my God, that was it just summed it all up, really. Couldn't even beat the first man. Everybody knows for a corner, you've got to beat the first man. And in the most critical corner of our season, it was just, don't even give ourselves a chance. And it was just sort of like, really? I don't blame he's tired, whatever, but you've just got to execute. You're a professional. Just take your time, breathe, just be that first man. And it was just, that was my real low light. That just summed up everything about the evening, really.
Jamie?
So my highlight, I think, actually was here in our aways. Absolutely bellowing in that stadium. That was pretty fantastic. And it kind of summed up, there was a lot of optimism around the night. And for a lot of the night, I think I still felt very optimistic. And I would have loved to be a part of that gang over there. That would have been a quite brilliant day, I'm sure, for those folks that managed to make it over. As for the low light, Tabs, I think that was hotly contested who was going to get there to say that low light.
I think we all had it. Don't worry, there's two more before it that you can pick. It's fine.
But I think I'll be a little. I think a little bit more actually. I think about the subs, and that's not the issue that some people have had with the Villa game or with other games of Arteta, where they question the subs themselves. I thought the subs were all kind of made sense. I think the impact the subs had was negligible, and it was the fact that we just felt in general in the second half we didn't really seem to have anything that was going to positively affect the flow of the game. And that might be more to do, I think, perhaps with what Bayern Munich were capable of doing and their ability in that situation. But I think from my side as an Arsenal fan, looking at us chucking on attackers, trying to affect a game, trying to change the momentum of it, and being unable to do so, that's the low light for me. It's the bit that sticks out in my mind. Anything else really is just their moments and their things that didn't go right, and they're things that happened with pressure. I think the massive takeaway from this game, perhaps even last game for me as well, is just that inability to stem the flow of the tide when somebody's managed to kind of get past our A game.
Very well put. The highlight for the low light that you mentioned about the subs was great. I think Trossard was so ineffective when he came on. I can't remember anything that he really did of note. I mean, there was one chance where I was screaming at the TV for him to get it into the box, and I think that's the only thing that I remember him doing or not doing. For me, the highlight was just Arteta. I think you got the lineup spot on pre-match. I think I was really happy with that. I was happy to see Havertz up top and Jorginho come back into the middle and Tommy out on the left. Although I would have been okay as well with KVR on the left, but Tommy I think was okay. There was a couple of times he got done by Sané, but once we doubled up on Sané, it was okay. It wasn't, there was nothing really of note. The low light for me was actually Ben White for the goal. I really feel like Ben White should have got out to that cross a lot quicker. I feel like it was almost reminiscent of the Newcastle game where the ball was out of play or in play or whatever. We can argue that on another episode. But when Ben White never ran out to it as quickly enough and then kind of stuck out a flailing leg and the cross came in, and it was almost a catalogue of errors, but it all started with Ben White not really being assured enough to really close that down. And then obviously Martinelli, who's not a defender, coming up against Kimmich, which, okay, yeah, a free header, but even if you're not a defender, I would still assume that you would potentially be able to challenge your man for the header. So that was a low light for me. But yeah, speaking of the lineup, I don't know if you guys had anything different. I think we all pretty much agreed that was the best lineup we could have went with. I would rather talk about the game itself and the amount of what had happened. And Tabs, you've wrote in the notes that they were there for the taking. And just before you came online, I was saying to Jamie they were there for the taking. We had so many chances, and even if we think about the second leg alone, the Martinelli chance in the first half was huge. If he hits that with his right foot, that's almost certainly a goal. I think he just kind of hit it with the side of his left foot almost, and it went straight at Neuer.
Yeah, he played it safe. It's that one. It was the easier one because it's always hard to hit a ball coming across with the near foot, sort of with it. It's sometimes easier to let it hit the other foot. But so, yeah, it was more. I want to get this on target, see what happens, rather than try and go for the difficult option. I think so. Yeah, he was sort of free. Maybe even had time to take a touch. Don't know. But again, a lot of what happened just sums up where we are at the moment. I just want to, with regards to the points you were making about the subs, I don't know anyone he put in. I think it would have been the same. It's more a reflection of the team as a whole rather than the individual subs. Making a difference. I think it's just the team as a whole. And in terms of the Ben White thing, for me, he's sort of stood out in terms of, you can see he's, at 90%, 95%, which makes a massive difference. He just seems to be I think he's struggling with a bit of injury. We know he fights through the pain and all the rest of it. It's just having that, even just that extra 1% of extra energy there, that is a bit lacking. I think there was a time in the first half as well, again, which he could have done better on a breakaway, or eventually got there. So I think there are moments like in the first leg where he made a brilliant, goal-saving challenge. And before that, he was doing it every week, all the time. Now he seems to be on and off a bit. So I can see that this is sort of part of the explanation, part of what we're saying about the energy or lacking something or running on fumes, that we're just at this phase where we're just a bit either devoid of creativity and lacking a bit of energy, and we're just and then but also Bayern played well. They sussed their tails. It was very much like the first game. Right, Saliba, Gabriel, you can have the ball. It's fine. There's no danger. Suffocate the middle. Don't give any space behind. And we're struggling to break that down. We don't have an answer to that. We don't have a player who's a lethal finisher or real creativity to match it with Odegaard, or someone who's going to do a thunder bastard from 25 yards to do something different. And that's maybe where the opportunities and the regrets come.
I said yesterday that we're crying out now in the summer for a left back, proper left back, because I think people seem to think that potentially Julian Timber's going to be our left back, but I think he's there to provide competition for Ben White and to give Ben White some rest. So I really do think we need a proper left back. I think we need a left-sided 8 in midfield, and I fully believe we need a striker. That's 3 positions that surely Arteta, the board, they all look at in the summer and really go for. I know we've been linked with strikers, but we need to really make that a priority. We need someone who, and we can say, look, we've scored almost 40 goals in 6 games before this kind of run. It's good, but when the goals dry up, you still need that person to keep going and keep getting them in and keep scoring, similar to like what Ollie Watkins is doing for Aston Villa. Keep scoring, keep ticking along, even if you're scoring 1 or 2 a game or whatever. That's what we need. Jamie, I wanted to ask you a question about kind of Tabs, I guess, touching it with regards to Ben White's fitness. Bukayo Saka yesterday just looked like he was run off he just looked so tired, and I can't remember watching a game where I watched the Man City game kind of obviously extra time, and I was watching Phil Foden, and I know we don't really make comparisons because they're not the same player. Phil Foden can play anywhere across the front 5, but what a difference. And they've both played equal amounts of minutes, but Saka just looks hurt. What's your thoughts on that?
I think they all do, to be frank. I think that core of players that are playing, the kind of, certainly the fullbacks and the wide players that are playing so often, when I say fullbacks, probably really only mean Ben White there in terms of playing consistently. They're the guys that Arteta's asking so very much of, and they just look knackered. And the only one that probably doesn't is Odegaard, who just seems to have the most phenomenal engine. I don't understand where it comes from. And to be honest, I can't fault him. And it's a really hard one for the manager as well, because I think this ties into a point I was going to make generally, where I think I've stuck up for some of our squad players in the past, and particularly earlier on in the season, and what they were able to contribute at times. But I think that's actually where there's a lot of upgrading needed. If we look at, I don't think anybody really can say that we could have significantly reduced the number of minutes that Bukayo Saka and Ben White and Odegaard, even though we perhaps haven't seen the evidence why we needed to yet, and Martinelli, because to be frank, the options that are coming off the bench aren't really impressing us, right? Reece Nelson is perfectly okay for Luton and for Sheffield United, and maybe even he carries himself in a Brighton and so on. And I love the boy for bits, and he can also be a really good little sub, but he's not somebody who can really eat into those minutes for Bukayo, and to be frank, also somebody that can have his heels be clipped for 90 minutes against some of the shit houses in a Luton team as well. That's one of the things that may be resting up a Bukayo against some of the sides that he's going to see most of the ball and be battered and bruised at the end of it. Perhaps those kind of games actually are the ones that you really want to leave him out of. So yeah, I'm not surprised. I think it's quite understandable that he would be knackered and that we've had to run him into the ground somewhat. It's the place that we need to upgrade next. I would possibly be looking as well at more of a competitive angle, especially on the left. If I'm honest, I want to see a bit of real competition for Martinelli. I think it is one of the places in the starting 11 where perhaps a controversy for some people, but I think it's one of the most upgradable positions in the team at the moment. Because as much as I love Gabby, I love his chaos, I really enjoy watching him play, the decision making isn't there, and he doesn't score the goals that he should be scoring. And I think that really shows this season when Saka's goal and assist record is much better, despite the fact it feels like Saka's being targeted by teams far more heavily.
What's really telling, sorry to interrupt, what's really telling is, so Andy sent a voice note in for the pod weeks and weeks ago that I never played because I was worried of the reaction, because we had just hit a purple patch of form and Martinelli was included. But it was, and it's not just Andy who's been saying this, but I've seen it on Twitter as well. Is Martinelli really the player that we think he is? Was last season just overperforming his metrics? And, you know, is it the case that maybe he's not as good as what we think? I mean, I'm not saying yes or no to this, by the way. I'm just putting out there. Andy was the one that said it. But what was really interesting was, you know, I seen it yesterday on Twitter. Andy mentioned it before. I might play the voice clip in the next episode if I can manage to download it. But is he overperforming his metrics last season to the point now where we think this season he's going to replicate it? I'm not sure. But you make a really good point about we do really need someone like Reece Nelson is not able enough to be backup for Saka, just like Eddie Nketiah is not able enough to be backup for our strikers, whether that's Jesus or Havertz. And also you could argue, just like how potentially Thomas Partey now or Alex Zinchenko are not able to be proper backups for our left back and centre mids. So that's a tricky thing. I mean, we could talk about that for a whole episode, and I'm sure over the summer we probably will once the recruitment is in drive. In terms of how Bayern played, though, I mean, it was telling, really telling, that in the second half, they only allowed us to have 2 shots, none of which were on target. And that really also annoyed me. I mean, I know the players were tired. I know they gave everything they could. And I was really happy with the way the first half went. I really think it was similar to how we set up against Man City. I think Arteta wanted us to be tight, be really focused. And we were. There was a couple of points, Gabriel, that passed back to Raya that went out for a corner, that Martin mouth moment. There was a couple of times where Saliba had scary moments where he was trying to beat the last man, and well, their striker, or Kane, or it was also Lamer as well one of the times, and almost kind of miskicked the ball. There was a really bad pass from Saka when we had a 6v4 overload. I think Cern mentioned that we had a huge overload. Saka made a really poor pass. So there was a couple of moments where, you know, we gave the ball away, but I think the focus on the whole was really good. What I'm really annoyed about, though, is the second half. I mean, we had 2 shots, none on target, no big chances. We only made 85% of our passes. We had 3 corners. We weren't a team that was going for, you know, losing 1-0, going to get a draw, or you know, it just didn't feel like the players knew we were 1-0 down. You know, it felt like we were still just trying to hold on to a draw or something and then go for the last gung-ho goal in the last minute, which obviously never came. I think that it annoys me just talking about it.
No, I mean, again, it's all part of that bigger picture. So, you know, it comes back to Jamie's point. We've made some odd squad decisions in, you know, reflecting on it, you know, the likes of Nketiah, the likes of Reece Nelson, the likes of Partey. So we've got this squad that we can't trust. So we're playing players into the ground, we play them all the time, and that eventually takes its toll. So this is about trusting the squad, and this is all about going to that next level so we can compete. So we have fresh, like City. Okay, didn't make any difference to City in the end, but they had 5 players rested at the weekend for their big game in the Champions League, and, you know, went out on penalties. And in terms of what you're talking about in terms of the second half, yeah, this is where we are at the moment. We're just lacking that energy. I think we're a team built to be leading. It's an odd thing to say, but when was the last time we've had to come back from behind and win a game? Or when was the last time we came back from behind to win a game? You know, we've come back from positions where we've been in the lead and then given away the lead. But when have we had to get and so we so it's a bit of a combination of, you know, the dynamic of how we play, where we are at the moment, and Bayern had us at arm's length. You know, it was like a big kid having their hand on the forehead of a small kid, just like, all right, you know, yeah, you're trying to push forward and just going nowhere. So it's just all that multiple phase. It is very frustrating. But you can, if you look back, you can see how it's coming. And how do we change that? That's part of Arteta's next evolution. Is okay, how do we become that team that in these moments when we need to find a goal, how do we find that? How do we find that? How do we find that goal? You know, is it through formation changes, through players that you can trust, just through better squad management, so that time, last 10 minutes, we've got all the energy we need. And as I said, we're just not there at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's chicken and egg with that, isn't it? When you've got the players you can trust spread amongst the squad, you can manage the squad better. And I think Arteta has, when he's had players that you can trust. There are players now that he can't trust this week that he could trust 3-4 months ago. And I think that's one of the probably one of the great shames as well. And Eddie really stands out on that front. I think at the moment, unfortunately, Jesus stands out on that front as well. And so does Zinni. So there's almost, it's strange. I think almost at this moment, it feels like there are harder selection issues for him with some of his more established players that he's ever had before, because they're just not in those kind of run to form that they'd had before. And so, yeah, the numbers makes a huge difference. Then you look at Bayern, they have like 6-7 guys in the forward line that are very, very similar. And, you know, slight differences between them. Some of them prefer the ball at the feet, some prefer running onto it. But, you know, Sane, Gnabry, Tell, Koeman, you know, there are Muller, and then you've got Harry Kane ahead of them as well. There are a bunch of really talented of strikers of not necessarily that different profiles to play on the wings, and they're all managing to get enough game time. And they're one of those clubs where every 2 or 3 years, one of them will get shipped out because he's at this moment in time, the least in form of the rest of them. And that's the kind of competition that we're talking about in Champions League. That's how good the Champions League squads are.
Yeah. The one thing I also wanted to add, and I sort of wrote this down last night, we've yet to have really that big winning moment that, you know, just getting over the line in a really big game type scenario. So, you know, okay, but fine, beating Liverpool at home, there's a level of expectation we should do that anyway. But, you know, we played well, we played them off the park and all the rest of it. City was 0-0, but we've not had that, you know, that fuck off win that I've heard from another podcast sort of thing, that really we've got over the line, we've done the job, and we can lean on that experience. We know what it's take. At the moment, we're just almost, and we haven't got that. And I don't know if that's in our heads, and you just need to break that duck, and then maybe the floodgates will open, the dam will open, and then the next one will come, and the next one will come, and it becomes easier and easier to win these tight games, to come back from adversity. And I don't think we have really done that yet. This team hasn't really experienced that, you know, winning against a big team in a big game, you know. And I think once we get to do that, we'll be better placed, and the next one will come, and the next one will come. At the moment, we're just, there seems to be this invisible barrier or whatever it is that's stopping that progress. And I think we will get there. It's just not at the moment.
They're milestones, right? And it is you're probably in that point in time in the Arteta reign where the milestones become a little bit less tangible than they were. They were really simple early on. Win a trophy, get yourself back in Europe, get yourself back in the Champions League. Those things are really, really simple. But once you then get yourself into this position where we are, which, you know, the kind of position that Klopp was in for quite some time and has been in for most of his Liverpool career, where you kind of, your milestone is perhaps trying to overcome one of the greatest machines in modern football. I think is probably the one that most people focus on. I think you're right, Taz, in saying there's actually quite a lot of moments before you get there, and you kind of have to look at what they're going to be. And as you say, that big fuck off win, which I love the term of, I don't know where you stop that from, but I probably want to listen to them.
I think it's Amy Lawrence So
there we go. And Norwich is amazing, so that doesn't
yeah,
me.
yeah,
But that big fuck off win, you're absolutely right, is the one. That is probably the next one. And once you get there, you feel absolutely on top of the world. But it can be a little difficult when you're in this intangible mire, I think, where the milestone so many focus on is the biggest one. It is the one that is absolutely ginormous. And as such, it's going to take a little while to get there.
And it doesn't mean we're not a good team. We are a good team. We are a very good team. I'm still going to put that out there. We are a fantastic team. If you look at all things considered, it's just that next step to become even better. Sorry,
we're a good team. Sorry, I was going to say we're a good team, but for the third successive April now, the good team has both physically and mentally collapsed, and that's not a good sign. And do you remember it used to be the Arsenal kind of just at Christmas time was that's when Arsenal's kind of run falters. Now it's moved a few months forward.
Well, that's what I was saying. At least it's not in November. So we've moved to April. So let's hope next year it's in June.
But the other worry then that we have is that we don't really have another plan when our plan A isn't working. It's like we don't really know what to do. And I was reading some tweets last night about the game, and someone had said that in the games against Villa and Bayern, we didn't really look like scoring, or obviously we didn't score or look like scoring. And it was evident that there's a lack of a world-class forward. But then also you look at the left-back position, and it has been a major talking point and a problem all season as well, that we need investment. But at the same time, you need to look at what Arteta has done with the side, right? He's taken us from 8th to 2nd. He's transformed the squad. He's got rid of a lot of the deadwood. He's got rid of a lot of the problems within the squad that potentially, was risky. The likes of Aubameyang, Lacazette, that kind of thing, Ozil, all that kind of, nonsense. It just still feels like we're a couple of players away from really, really challenging. And I read a tweet saying this was almost similar to the Liverpool Van Dijk Alisson moment, where we're just those kind of two. I'm not saying those positions, but I'm just saying those kind of players away. And I also agreed with this tweet saying that they were talking about rotation in midfield, and Jorginho and Rice are both shattered. And to that effect, I've just seen a picture come in from Fraser into the group chat, and it's a list of Arsenal players who have started 40 matches or more this season. It's Gabriel, Saliba, Odegaard, White, Rice, Saka, Havertz. A list of Man City players who have started 40 or more this season, 0. That's huge. So that and as Jamie says, that's the core of players who are absolutely shattered. And you can see Odegaard. I'll be very surprised if he plays against Wolves on the weekend. He was hurt in was it the second half or first half? Sorry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
5 minutes before, he pulled down his sock and his knee looked quite inflamed.
Yeah, I think that's just knee on knee sort of stuff. So I don't think that's soft tissue damage. It's just impact. So I think he'll be fine, and he'll play. He'll play against Wolves. Put it like this: I'd rather have an 80% Odegaard than the alternatives. So and I think
you have to look at other games that are coming up as well.
Yeah,
the next 2 weeks for us are vital.
But again, those games are irrelevant if we don't beat Wolves. So you just got to be thinking the next. So I think we're all coming to the same conclusion that I think we're a good team. We're just not quite there yet, and we just need to take that next step. And this is it. This is now again building that squad, just getting those extra. We're taking those steps. And you can't all do it in one go. It's squad management, building squad. You can't just say, hey, let's just get rid of X, Y, Z and buy in X, Y, Z. It doesn't work like that. It always, unless you're Man City, who've got all the money in the world and can spend 50 million on someone and then bin him to West Ham, fine. We can't do that. And so it is for us, for teams like Arsenal, it is slower progress. But even then, for teams like City, with all the money they've had, they still only got to the Champions League final. Was it twice? Won it once? Fine, but they still can't. They're still not doing it year in, year out. So this is our first time doing both Premier League and Champions League. So I think that there is that progress. We're still doing better, and I think it's clear what we need to do next. So it's good if we could sit and say, "I have no idea." That would be more worrying. When you're sort of like, "No, we know what the next evolution is." Then that makes me feel confident and happy for for the next steps. We've had 1 year experience of doing this. We'll take from that, and then next year, you know, we bring that to it. But there are no guarantees, though. It's not like we're saying this, all right, it's easy. This is like, you know, A plus, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. There's still no guarantees, but I still don't think you throw away 95% of all the good stuff that there. We just like that small bit away, and we got to give it a chance.
So let's talk about key moments from the second half then, and get this out of the way, because I don't want to talk about this ever again until the highlight reels start coming up next season when we're in the same position, and it's Bayern Munich again, no doubt, or Barcelona. So key moments in the game, right? So we'll just go through them. So there was obviously the chance for Goretzka. Well, we'll go second. There was not really anything of note in the first half. I think it was a really good save from Musiala. What a player. What a player he is. England have lost an absolute talent in the midfield. The fact that he's chose to obviously choose to
play for Germany.
I guess, yeah. So play. But there was nothing else of note, was there, in the first half?
Nah, it was fairly. I said it was cagey. Everyone's standing. I think Kane had a volley early on. There was Nelly's shot. Odegaard had the deflected shot, but everything was comfortable. There was no dramas from either side. And as I think you said, I think both teams would have been happy with that. You think, okay, we're fine. We're still in this. No dramas. Let's go again. And then
it felt like to me, actually, it was really kind of warming up into the tensions building, the game's getting there. This second half's going to be absolutely fantastic. This is going to be a real slugfest. And yeah,
it wasn't.
I'm just thinking now. So yeah, second half there was obviously the most chances. Essentially, the first one was the one on, was it Goretzka that headed it onto the crossbar, and then I don't know who it was that hit the Guerrero. Was it Guerrero? Rafael Guerrero hit the post from Saliba. So that was like the major kind of something was brewing. And then obviously there was Gabby hitting the pass back, and oh my god, I'm just thinking now like how I felt in that moment. It was almost like everything went in slow motion, right? And the ball was
got it on target. You should have got it on target.
And then obviously Bayern score, and it was a good goal. I mean, well worked. They kind of went right to left, and Sané did pretty well. But like I mentioned at the start of the pod, I really think Ben White should have done better. I think he should have been closed down better, not just stuck out a random leg. His right leg just kind of stuck out. Martinelli, is he at fault? Potentially, but he's not a defender, so should a defensive midfielder or defender should have maybe, claimed that. And the other thing is, could Raya have come out to it? I'd think the ball was maybe going a bit too fast for him to do that. But
it was well outside the 6 yard. Yeah, no, it wasn't Rice to come and claim it. Again, I think everyone can find fault in any goal that you give in, and often it's just a catalogue of smaller errors, like Sané being allowed to drive so far forward. Raya palmed it. He could have done better with the cross. Yeah, he does what he does. He's near post. He tries to anticipate. It was a bit too high for him. White closed him down. Martinelli, even if you can't defend, you run with him, so you put him off. He had a free run, and that's a really hard run to stop, because if you've got the momentum coming in from that far out, whereas Martinelli's a bit static, it's hard. So, but yeah, again, I think it's preventable, but it was also a very good goal for them to finish, and a quality header. So, and then other players were potentially ball watching. As I said, you'll find fault in any goal if you look closely enough. But I do think it was preventable. But it was coming. I think with the warning signs were there
from fullback as well. So when we say it was Martinelli's job to potentially be on him, absolutely was. But I always sympathise when you've got the free man running onto the ball and it's a fullback, because it is the one that ultimately it's the goal that you don't expect to be scored most of the time.
Yeah.
And I have vague recollections of us having conceded that goal a few times this season, actually. But it was a lovely cross. It is that difficult ball to defend as well, where all of your momentum as a defender, for those that play defenders and 11s, your momentum shifts quite a lot, right? You start looking, when you get turned side on, you start moving your weight left to right. And as soon as you've really set it and a cross comes in and it pulls you the other way, it's so hard to spring back and do anything about that. It really is. And it's just a lovely ball for that reason. And Kimmich meets it, as well as you possibly can there.
Yeah.
It's not great. There's things you can pick around it, but I just think it's a fairly standard good goal. I almost feel like that when you go out and play football, you try and score goals like that one. It's not particularly beautiful. It's not particularly badly defended. It's not particularly brilliantly worked. It's just got a good ball, a good finish, and it's caught the defence in a place where they don't want to be.
And then what happened after that was we had half an hour, pretty much, give or take, a few minutes, to go out there and score another goal, try taking the tie to extra time. And once the goal went in, I think it was pretty soon after, kind of 4 or 5 minutes after, when Trossard came on for Martinelli and Gabby Jesus came on for Jorginho. But then Bayern responded after a matter of minutes and bringing off Mazraoui for some fresh legs with Kim Min-jae, who what a great player he was as well when he came on. I think he almost just looked as if he was solid at the back and didn't really let us have anything. And the only chances we really had was the Saka quick free. So we had a free kick right towards the end, 85 minutes on the clock, and we get a free kick and Saka sees kind of Ben White, and I guess two inexperienced young players, Ben White's running and Saka quickly gets up and passes the ball, but Ben White's suffocated by 4, maybe even 5 Bayern players, and that's an opportunity where I think Odegaard should be taking a shot on goal and testing the keeper. You never know, a rebound or anything could happen. Work the keeper at least and have a shot. And then Trossard, I was shouting at my TV screen for him to cross the ball into the box and, just get the ball in and stop dilly-dallying around at the edge of the box and passing side to side and side to side and side to side until then we're...
What are you doing?
Oh,
in the box. And then he gives away a free kick. Because he loses the ball. He realises he made a mistake, dives in, free kick, fall over. That's another minute gone. It's like,
Yeah, I think we felt a bit scared of their centre halves in that moment as well, and the fact that because they're quite a big bunch, to be fair.
Yeah.
When you stick Goretzka in there as well and Lima, they're a decently sized group of players, and it just felt to me like they were scared to put the ball in because they just felt like the percentages on those chances look very, very awful. So let's try and do something else. But there wasn't really much
anything else on.
Yeah.
And you know what? It might fall in the right place. Again, I think this summed up yesterday, second half, even the whole game. Our decision making wasn't quite right. We were just off. Passing wasn't quite right. It wasn't landing in the right place. But also, I just don't think anything was falling for us. There was a few times when we were in the area, it was pinging around feet, and it was never like 2 yards in front and someone could lash at the ball. It was always underneath feet. It was always, I'm trying to get out of my feet to take the shot. And just throughout the whole game, things didn't fall for us or land in the place where, we can try and take that shot. It very, just those things you don't have your control and it can go either way. It falls for the defender. For the defender, they just see the ball, they can boot it. If you're forward, you need to have it at least somewhere that you can take a shot. And I just never felt so that aligned with our decision making, just some of the passing and things like that. I think that's just sums up where we were on the night, particularly in the second half. And
I might have moved on. That's worth saying because I think it has been on reflection, I haven't thought too much about it, but you look at the Villa game as well. There were a couple of times where, again, ball ricocheting around the box. Remember one when Havertz was trying to get those long legs wrapped around something and to get it in the near post. It feels like it's the difference between Gabby Jesus scoring goals and not scoring goals at any given amount of time is the rub of the green.
Yeah.
It's just a coin flip. But the coin flips haven't quite been with us, the last week or so. You don't put everything down to it, but it is true. Well, no, it hasn't been there.
No.
And we just need to remember to, these players are paid 6 figures every week, and they still can't beat the first man at a corner.
but that's got nothing to do with how much you get paid. That's just fatigue in the body and the mind.
I'm sorry. If I was getting paid £110,000 a week, I would have every single one of my crosses from a corner hit my man every single time. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, they're not robots. It doesn't work like that. You know that. That's just.
But the last heck of the game, just.
I totally agree. It's frustration, but that's just mind and body just gone. And that's all that is. It's not like Saka's going, oh, I'm paid $230. I better get this in the middle. He doesn't give a shit at this moment how much he's getting paid. And guess who feels the worst? I bet you Saka there is sitting there more gutted than anyone else. Think, oh, geez, So yeah, I know. I agree. They should be getting. You beat the first man. Jesus, it's just like. Kids know that from day one. It's one of my pet hates.
It's horrible.
What's happened?
But
what's happened to our set pieces? It's all of a sudden that was in the bag. If we could not get a goal from being creative, or teams were playing with 12 men behind the ball, we always had set pieces in our locker, and all of a sudden that's gone off the boil.
But teams have cottoned onto that now. Teams have their own tactical coaches, so they'll know how to defend these, and it doesn't help that the likes of Terry Henry or other pundits, Alan Shearer, are analysing it on Match of the Day or CBS, Galazzo, and they're looking at it and scrutinising our set pieces to the nth degree because
because teams don't have analysts to do that. Right? Oh, they're all watching Match of the Day.
Yeah, that's how it works, right? That's how Arteta scouts for Wolves. He's just watched Match of the Day from the weekend. So, before we get on to the Wolves preview, I've got a question coming from Manny, and there's two questions here. The first one he asked was where we think the club addresses shortcomings in the summer. I think we've kind of answered that when I said at the start, about a left-sided 8, a left-back and a striker. The other question he asked, though, is, this is maybe a little bit of a more controversial one, and it is doing the rounds on Twitter as well, I guess, in terms of Arteta. Do you think his lack of in-game tactical awareness over the past 2 or 3 seasons is coming back to bite him? Personal opinion is he hasn't evolved much as a manager yet and needs to work on his reactiveness to situations. Every aspect of play seems very planned down to the subs. It's costing us in the big games. And yeah, very good point. And every aspect of play does seem planned. And even the fact that, for example, Saka and Martinelli hugging the sideline, and that does seem like tactics that obviously Arteta's employed into the squad, and it does seem like it's almost too easy to read when certain players do that, and it seems like it's almost becoming too predictable. What I would say, though, as well, as I've seen other people tweeting and commenting in various group chats, is how many more seasons do you really give Arteta before you start thinking, right, okay, what's the next step here? And I think it was in the Grove actually yesterday. I think I can't remember who it was that said it. Maybe you guys will be able to help me, but someone commented last night saying, look, well, how many more seasons do we have to give Arteta before fans, not us as a group, and certainly not me potentially, but until fans start to then think we need to get onto the next level.
But and this goes back to my point, saying we are a good team. We're almost there. I think there are elements of that, right? He's still learning. We're still learning, and he's got to go through this. But let's not throw out everything we've done that is so good to get where we are. We just need to do more of what we're doing, and a bit better, and take it to the next level. That includes the squad management we talked about. Arteta needs to evolve, and he's a control freak. He wants to control everything. So I think there's a bit of an element there where he's lost, where he can't control the game, that he needs to improve in terms of, okay. But we talked about earlier this year, we played in different formations, we played different ways, we challenges, Shapeshifter FC, we were talking about doing different things. So it's always when things go bad, all of a sudden you think, oh, everything's rubbish. No, it's not. It's just, it is those fine margins. We are now at that fine margin level. So how do we refine those fine margins to get us to the next level? And that's around players, squad management, and a few tactical changes. But then, as I said, if things like your set pieces have suddenly dried up, these things, we're not a team that takes those long range shots and occasionally they go in. Vincent Kompany scoring against Leicester back in the day to win City. You just don't have that in the moment. What was it? Was it Declan Rice against West Ham was the last goal from outside the box? Free kicks from outside the box. So it's just those fine margins. I really don't want to throw everything away that's all good, because also start again. And then it doesn't mean you change it and we're automatically going to go to the next level. We're on whatever 80 plus points per season, rate. That's a really good rate. Okay, we got to have context, and it may not be good enough, but so it's about the margin. So I wouldn't want to throw everything away. I can understand it. This is where the patience comes in, and you're right. How long do you give? I'm still 3-4 seasons away from binning everything.
It was actually Manny who said that. He said, this is the message. He said, given the team and Mikel one more year, otherwise the cat will be amongst the pigeons. Board also has to go big with backing in the summer. Agents have to work doubly hard to get rid of our dross. Yeah. A really interesting take. Yeah. I mean, but look, I'm not. I would personally say I disagree with that take. I don't think one more year, but what I would say to Manny and to that message is there will be a section of Arsenal fans who start to also feel that way. And the other thing you need to think about is, and I've mentioned this multiple times in the podcast before, that if we don't win anything, something big, and I mean by big, I mean league or Champions League or one of those two trophies in the next maybe 2 to 3 seasons, I really honestly believe that players will start to leave. The team that we have now will not be the team that we have then, and it'll be a lot more difficult to attract and retain players of a world-class caliber, and we cannot afford to let that happen. We've done so well to this point to tie them all into long-term contracts. We've done so well at this point to get rid of all the problems in the squad, and everyone seems like they're really close together and tight-knit, and it's almost like a family in that club, and you hear about it all the time. And Arsenal as a club, they're classy, they ooze class, and we can't afford to let that happen. And almost have, it's almost like the England national team golden generation of all these players. And I know they've got Gareth Southgate as manager, who I wouldn't ever want near my club, but it's almost like, and you look at Spurs as well, and I'm not comparing us to Spurs, but Spurs with Kane and Son and Dele Alli and all these great players, and Kulusevski, and they've had Eriksen and all these players who are great and who would probably walk into 19 out of the other 20 Premier League teams on a good day, or maybe 18. I don't think they'd walk into any of the Arsenal squad. Yeah. But what I'm trying to allude to, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but teams like England and teams like Spurs have not won trophies when they really had a chance, and I do not want to fall into that same trap. That's all I'm saying. So yeah. Manny, I don't agree, but I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I really think there's a reason that those kind of golden generations become a bit of a fallacy, right? So England's golden generation largely coincided with Portugal's golden generation, which largely coincided with a Brazilian golden generation, all three of which disappointed massively because none of them can all win the same trophies that they're competing for. And that's kind of the thing, is that our momentum is being matched by other people's momentum. And in terms of the general point into how long you give Arteta, it's ball of string territory, surely. Like I find that a bit of a strange thing. It's like, can you imagine hiring somebody for a job and kind of saying, rather than looking at your performance on an ongoing basis, we're going to assess it specifically in 2 years' time. We'll do nothing until then, but at that point, you better be on it, otherwise you're gone. I can't see that you want to constantly be looking at how it's doing and making the call as you go. You're gonna hit the point in time at which you feel you need something different at the point in time at which you need something different. And I don't know, maybe it's just that there's so much discussion about football now that hyperbole kind of does reign supreme. And I get that those takes are always going to be out there, but they do somewhat frustrate me, because to go back to your point, Moz, about moving forward and the potential of this team to attract players, if we were to take a backward step, or if we don't move forward further and start winning things, I actually think that's kind of a bit of a fallacy as well, just in so much as that we attracted these players when we were finishing 8th in the league, when we were transitioning between managers, when we had a brand new manager that nobody really knew what he's going to be capable of, when we had ownership structure issues, when we felt like we were somewhat rudderless as a team. Those players have appreciated in value massively. We now have saleable assets that we can make huge returns on, certainly in comparison to what we had a few years back when we were having to pay people to take our players. And so as a result, I think, no, we're in a much better position. And if we were to make a change from Arteta at some point because you don't feel the progress is there, then actually I think we're in a great place to go and recruit players, using funds from, big sales at our end, no doubt, and be able to push on from there. The question is how you do that well, and that's the Tottenham comparison. Tottenham didn't do it well. Tottenham ran themselves into the ground because they held on to Kane for too long. And they could have made double the money a few years back, to be completely frank, or at least in relative value in terms of what it would go and get you in value elsewhere. Dele Alli was probably a bit of an unfortunate one. You couldn't see where that was going to go. So, let that slide. But even Christian Eriksen, they had a habit. They kept their team together for too long. Maybe Son as well. Who knows? But certainly they didn't manage the situation and capitalise on what they did as a club. That is still a challenge. We might not get that right. We might not. It is a challenge. But I think we're in a much better place to do something about that than we were 4 or 5 years ago, when we were clutching at straws for how the hell you were going to build a team around the Arsenal again that was going to be able to challenge in the space of time that we have.
And I think on top of that is, whenever I was saying the word patience, I've got wail in my ear. How long for? How long for? How long are we going to wait? So, when I was even saying the word, I can't say the word patient without hearing him in my ear. But that's the thing. I think it's just the nature of just society at the moment. It's all the now type stuff. I want it now and immediate. And I'm not calling Manny out for this. This is not here. This is just in general, because it said fans will ask this. And it's often, I would say, maybe the younger generation. I don't know. So it's that patience thing, or always what you want out of football. Again, so if it's all about winning, all about a trophy, I want it now. Yes, you know what? 99 times out of 100, you will be disappointed, and you'll want to go and change it. I want to get the next shiny thing, and that's definitely going to work until it doesn't work, and then I want to get the next shiny thing, and so on. So it's a really hard balance. So I'm sort of in agreement. I think next 3 years are the years we need to start winning. Otherwise, I think Moz's point is that this squad will break up a bit, and we need to start rebuilding again. And then what does that mean? So yes, Jamie, we can attract talent. We will attract talent because playing in the Prem, we've got money, whatever. It's just that how do we keep this team together, or do we stop it from breaking up? And then what's the next iteration going to be like? So there's a balance. I think we need to appreciate what we've got, not to say everything's great, ignore all the crap stuff, but appreciate where we are, appreciate where we're going, have a bit of patience, try and enjoy it, but also, at some point there needs to be a return on that investment.
The silver cloud is, or the silver lining, is that Man City are knocked out. Liverpool are 3-0 down in the first leg, so it's not all doom and gloom, right? Our rivals are also faltering at this stage as well. Let's talk about Wolves then anyway. So the biggest game so far of the season, we can really, and Declan Rice alluded to this in the press conference after the game. He said, look, our focus is on Wolves. We need to show what we are about. We cannot let these last 3 games define us and define our season, which is great. The good thing about it, and Tabs, you spoke about it at the start. So obviously we play Wolves on Saturday night at 7:30 kickoff. Is honestly really weird timing, but I think it's the first time we've played them at 7:30 on a Saturday night. So it'll be interesting to see the atmosphere and whatnot up in Birmingham. But so there's that, and then obviously we play against Chelsea midweek. So technically, as you mentioned, Tabs, we could be on 77 points, so 4 points clear of Man City, who will then have 2 games in hand before they then play their next game against Brighton. So a chance to almost become, the team that runs away with this. And obviously we're looking at Liverpool, who all the way up until the end of this month now, we've got 10, 11 days left till the end of the month. Liverpool have their 3, what we call tough away games against Fulham, Everton and West Ham. We've got our games against Chelsea, Wolves, and Spurs, and then Man City obviously will then start to play more games in the month of May. So it's heating up, and I still think that all three teams will drop more points. It's just a matter of who drops the most. I don't see us winning away to United and Spurs, if I'm being honest. But I guess that's a pod for another day. I think it's more the next game and the game on Tuesday against Chelsea are huge. If we win those two, all's not forgotten, if you like. But I guess the form and everything picks up again. Fans start getting more hopeful, and then who knows? City could drop points. Liverpool will drop further points, and this is where we'll find out: is this Arsenal team really made of something, some stern stuff, or are they going to just go out with a whimper? That's how I feel. And I like what you wrote, Tabs, about no point going to Dubai. It's flooded. I was seeing so many memes online over the course of the last few days, and it's people saying, Arteta, please take the squad to Dubai via Munich, and just do something. But I don't think that will happen. I'm afraid it's pretty bad over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what you guys think about Wolves. If anyone's not looking forward to in the match, Tab, you can go first. You look like you got something today.
Well, no, I'm looking forward to it. Another game. I love watching us play. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I want to see if we've got the stomach for the fight. This is, can we get up off the floor and go again? I don't know how. It looks a really tough task, but I want to see us, see what we can do in that regard. See if we can, just get on with it, get back to winning ways, go top of the league. What I'm not looking forward to, well, obviously, another second half where we don't score and get the other opposition get better of us. So I'm really hoping that isn't the case. I don't know. Arteta's in a bloody hard position today. I mean, privileged but hard. How does he pick this team up? How do we get going? But the incentive is there. We've got the chance to win the league. We've got the chance to go top. If that's not an incentive, then you shouldn't be playing football. So I think we have to move on, forget it, move on, win the game, go top. Over to you, City.
Jamie, what are you looking forward to, not looking forward to for Saturday night?
Do you by any chance have a ticket to the game, by the way, Moss?
No, I don't, I'm afraid.
Good, because you definitely don't want to turn up in Birmingham for it, mate. I can't believe you said that, man. Can't be saying that. I mean, I sympathies. I did live around the way for a long time. But yeah, when we're up in Wolverhampton,
I don't know why I said that.
In fairness, mate, the more that I live down south, the more I am just starting to tell everybody when they ask where did you live for, a good 10 years of your life. It's Birmingham. Who cares? Like, it's meh. Nobody.
Yeah, just because they're so close, right? And like you just even when people say, oh, do you know what, I live in, for example, if it's like Bolton, I'll just say, oh, that's Manchester, right? Or
the following people, the Boltonians will love that.
And if they say, I live in Wakefield, I would just class that as Leeds. Or I guess if you say, you live in Paris, I would just class that as London, right?
So what? So you live in Edinburgh, yeah?
To be fair, I tell the guys in the Grove, look, I live pretty much in Edinburgh. Yeah, like I'm an hour away, but still.
Well, everything's Edinburgh if you're Scotland. Jamie, where are you from? Edinburgh? I don't know.
The West Coast is bad.
Anyway, I'm not sure where we're going on this one, but there seems to be a dislike the Wolverhampton area.
But so we go to play Wolves. We'll inevitably. I think the one thing we can expect is probably some changes. I don't think it's sustainable for us to trot out two similar starting 11. Obviously, I'd like to see somebody replace Ben White on the subject we were on earlier. I'd like to see somebody come in and give him a rest. Maybe the fact that Tommy Asu can move over to the right, have somebody else come in at left back. I think certainly as well, I'd love to see ESR get another game. And I think a few changes. I think it's almost worth being brave, gambling a bit. And I think the gambling in this particular game is in more rotation over less. It hasn't always worked out for us. I think it might work out for us a little bit more away from home, weirdly, than it does at home. because we're not expecting to control those games or be quite as fluid necessarily. And yeah, I mean, what am I desperate to see? I'm probably really, really, really desperate to see a Gabby Jesus goal. I almost
Any goal.
like a couple of Gabby Jesus goals and setting him on his path and giving him a little bit of confidence could have such a big difference in this run-in, when unfortunately we have been playing, it feels like now, for almost a whole season without the Gabby Jesus that we had last season. And it feels like that's the player that we could probably really do with at this moment. So that's my kind of absolute wish list, is that he starts up front, gets a couple of goals, and we manage to rest up a couple of players. They are really good though for what they are. They beat Tottenham or Chelsea. Beat Chelsea, didn't they?
No, Wolves have had some good results, at home.
Yeah.
I think they drew against City. I think
They did.
I don't know, but their recent form hasn't been great. Like in the last 6 games, they've won 1, drawn 2, lost 3, let in 11, scored 6, and they lost to Coventry at home in the cup. So they're mid-table. Again, on paper, with a better team. Unfortunately, the game isn't played on paper. And they've got a decent manager. I like the manager. I like him. They seem to have not had the rub of the green this year from VAR. But I said they're not particularly great. Was their home form? They've lost 5, won 7, drawn 3, 0 goal difference. So they're beatable. They're beatable, but they are one of these teams on their day. They can cause the big teams trouble. I think they beat Spurs, drew against City, but then they lose some of the easier games. Was it they lost at home against West Ham, drew against Burnley, and then drew against Nottingham Forest, but that's away. So their home form recently, beat Fulham 2-1, lost at home to West Ham, but then drew away to Burnley, lost to Villa, drew to Nottingham Forest, lost to Newcastle. So it's an opportunity. I think we got to get in there, but our present state just makes it a harder game.
Yeah, I think it makes it interesting who some of those results are against as well. Like they've got a bit of a skewed relationship with kind of the Big Six, effectively. Where, even the and when I say the Big Six, I almost mean more the old Big Six, just big clubs.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to mention they're taking 6 points off Chelsea, and they're definitely not top 6. But
no,
they are one of the big clubs you don't necessarily expect Wolves to go to and beat. They beat, as you say, they beat Tottenham and they drew with them as well. Even the fact they had that 3-4 barnstormer with United, they should have won that 100%. And that's where they might be a little bit dangerous in that respect. But again, I'd like to see us, unfortunately, I think we have to rest up some players, be brave, do a bit more rotation rather than less, really prep ourselves, not just for Chelsea, but the following weeks. To a certain extent, I wouldn't even mind a little bit more rotation against Chelsea than what we have had. I almost feel like there's a bit of a reset that if you look really knackered, try and make the players a little bit less knackered to you with the last 5 or 6 games when you've got your 2 absolute biggest games in the run-in, rather than trying to just keep pushing forward. Worth it.
I guess it's a tough one because those games don't mean anything unless you win this game. So you're right. You're rolling the dice a little bit. And what's better, an 80%, 70% fit starter versus one of the options off the bench? And that's always a tough call. I think it will be a mix. I don't think we'll go heavy rotation, but you're right. I think we need to do some rotation, and then maybe even change the style of play a little bit. Maybe don't go so gung-ho on the press. Odegaard is just always leading that press, always getting in there. But if you can get past it, he's doing a lot of unnecessary running. So maybe we need to just change tactically something so you sort of not stressing yourself so much in the game, or a combination of all of the above.
I'll tell you guys about what I'm looking forward to, not looking forward to then, shall I? Sorry, digression about these players. But what I'm looking forward to is you took the words out of my mouth, guy. I was going to mention all of that about the Big Six and all. No, I'm kidding.
That's not my style.
I just no, it's not. I'm looking forward to getting back to winning ways, hopefully. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what Arteta does with the lineup. I really want to see some rotation. What I'm not looking forward to is the reaction of the players if this game ends up in anything but an Arsenal win. I really fear for what potentially could then happen. So, look, it's going to be a great game. We mentioned, we can go top of the league, and everyone else will start playing catch up again. And the only worry I've got really is I think that is Cunha, who scored 2 great goals on the weekend. He's in my fantasy team, so although I keep him on the bench every time he seems to deliver, so he's the one to watch out for. If we can keep him quiet, we should be okay. And then obviously
he scored against us, didn't he, in the fixture at the Emirates?
Yeah, he's a great player. And then obviously when you look at Wolves, a team, I mean, it's almost as if they're always, as Jamie alluded to, I mean, they've not won since they beat Fulham on the 9th of March, but their performances haven't been really that bad. Apart from potentially they lost 3-2 to Coventry. Do you remember that in the FA Cup a few weeks back? But apart from that, really, they've not been overly bad. Where you're watching them play and you think, wow, they're a really, really bad team. I mean, Man U had to score in the 97th minute to beat them. They beat Chelsea, didn't they? So it's one of those ones where, I think we'll be okay. The only saving grace is, I guess, Pedro Neto can't come back and haunt us before his big move to Arsenal in the summer. So he's out injured. And it'd be really nice, I know it's not going to happen, but it'd be really nice just to see Julian Timber potentially on the bench or even get some minutes for the under-23s or something. I know it's not, we don't need him, but it'd just be nice to go into into pre-season with a fully strength, Arsenal squad and no injuries and start again, so that's how I feel. What's your predictions, guys? So we'll wrap it up with predictions. And also, just on the subject of predictions, obviously no one from the last pod got it right. I don't think
you predicted a loss. You predicted a loss.
I predicted a 2, and
2-1.
And props must go to Wale out of everyone in the Grove. So I put the poll in the chat and I put down all the scores. Tab thought we'd win 5-1, by the way, guys. I put it in the chat, and Wale was the only person that said that Bayern would win 1-0. So well done, Wale. And also kind of props to Dawit, and also it might have been Matt as well who predicted a home victory. I went for 2-1 along with Sasha and Senzi. So, but well done, Wale. Your prize will be to appear on a podcast very soon. So as long as you record at a time that suits you. So Tab has went 1-0 Arsenal for the game against Wolves. Jamie, what do you reckon?
Depends. If you'll take one for the team and triple captain Cunha, then I'll go 5-0 to the Arsenal. But I'm going to go with I actually think with a few changes, we're going to be a little bit more chaotic, and I'm expecting to see that. So I'm going to go with a 2-3. So Wolves 2, Arsenal 3. See if it goes back and forth a little like some of their other games against the bigger clubs have this season.
It's interesting. I'm going to go with a 4-1. I think a huge reaction will be, and we'll score 1, but I think Wolves will score 4. No, I'm kidding.
I am wondering where these 4 and 3 goals are coming from at the moment, because
I think
we don't look like
we don't. I think there'll be a huge reaction. I'm hopeful that the players like the likes of Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard will really rally these players up. And I think, as Jamie says, we're going to be chaotic and we're going to be unpredictable. And I can see, a big win, 4-1, good vibes again, and then we'll end up, finishing off strongly. So that's that.
So
I think there's a lot of recency in that, and like Tabs. The last 3 games, but they've been against Bayern Munich. We did score 2 goals against them at home, and could have scored more. And against Villa, and again, didn't quite go our way when we had quite a XG in the first half. But also, their centre backs are bloody good. Similar to ours. And before that, if you recall, we were scoring quite a lot of goals.
I
still think that.
I hear you. It's just that it just worries me. It's just a very fine line. Just the energy levels. It's not that the talent's not there, and I think mentally, I think they're fine. It's just seeing those energy levels in the last 2 halves of football that's the concern. And so how are we going to lift this team? And the one thing is, I just don't want us going out in a whimper. That's just the worst. So yeah, get up off the floor, fight, win, top of the league, away you go.
We'll see you back here on Monday. Grovers, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions for the next pod, please let me know. Send Tabs or myself a direct message, either a voice note or a message on WhatsApp. And also on Spotify, you can click underneath on the episode description and you can type in a question or whatever you wish. Thank you again so much, guys, for joining me, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Cheers from me, folks.